So it's amazing to think, looking back, that one of cinema's greatest gangster films was once slated for a television release, with about half an hour of its more unsavoury moments cut out and the late great Bob Hoskins being dubbed over by another actor so American audiences could understand what the hell he was going on about. Thankfully for us, none of that happened, and we got to enjoy one of the best films of the 1980s and one of the best films of the gangster genre, full stop. Let's take a look. So 1980's The Long Good Friday follows London gangster Harold Shand, a villain who's risen from nothing to become the ruler of the criminal underworld. Harold's had a good run, enjoying 10 years of peace due to his control. He's extremely rich and has a beautiful girlfriend, and he's on the verge of getting even richer due to his involvement in a semi-legitimate deal with the American mafia, one which will kickstart the rejuvenation of the London Docklands, replacing the declining portside areas with vast new modern developments, with a view to even holding a future Olympic Games there.
So it's important that the right people mastermind the new London. Proven people with nerve, knowledge and expertise.
So he returns home on a trip to the US on Good Friday, hence the title, to greet mafia boss Charlie, who has come over to finalise the deal, but learns that two of his associates have been murdered and explosives found in one of his casinos. He sets out to discover what's going on, but soon realises that this is just the start of his problems. To Harold's horror and embarrassment in front of his American counterparts, more of his men start to die in spectacular ways, and as the day goes on, the bodies and explosions keep piling up. With Harold having long since killed off his gangland rivals, who now would be bold enough to throw an explosive spanner in the works? Guys, I'm Stephen at Real Classic Film Reviews. The Long Good Friday is right up there with some of my favourite films, and the kind of film I love discussing on this channel. If you're a fan of films like this and other classic films, then consider dropping a like on this video and subscribing to the channel for more classic films. So for me, I think Harold Shand's unstable, pro-Thatcherite villain becomes such an interesting character due to the performance of the late great Bob Hoskins. Watching him gnashing his teeth together and seething with violence is an absolute treat. Hoskins had a well-established and steady career working mainly on British television up until this point, but The Long Good Friday was his calling card and brought him a well-earned stardom. Hoskins has a great screen presence and has that perfect balance of being charming and likeable, but absolutely terrifying when he's pushed to the edge. And The Long Good Friday is Hoskins operating at full force.
Give me that fucking gun! Raise it! Turn it in, I give it! Turn it in, gun! Give me the gun!
And one of the many things that sets this movie apart from other gangster movies, at least in the character department, comes from Helen Mirren's portrayal of Harold's girlfriend. Instead of playing the typical glamorous gangster's moll, which she easily could have because she looks spectacular, but at Mirren's request, she plays a character who is smart, sophisticated, and most probably the brains and reasoning behind Harold's operation. Being Helen Mirren, she's obviously the object of many of Harold's men's affection, dangerously so in one of the film's most skin-crawling moments.
I want to lick every inch of you.
Saved by the Bell. Good night.
And as for the rest of the cast, this is one of those films where you might not know the names of the actors up on screen, but you'll know them from somewhere. I'd totally forgotten that Paul Freeman, who plays Belloc in Raiders of the Lost Ark, has a cameo appearance at the beginning of this movie. And future 007 Pierce Brosnan himself, in his first film role, has a major supporting role as an assassin, appearing in the opening and ending of the film in pivotal moments. So for me, growing up and starting to watch my way through the classics, I automatically placed this film alongside gangster films from the US, such as, you know, Scarface and The Godfather, Once Upon a Time in America, which I do still stand by today, but I don't think this film gets its due recognition, like certainly outside the UK. It doesn't often make those best of lists from the States, which is a bit of a shame. And I say that because it does have all the tropes of the gangster genre, you know. It's got the colourful characters, the glamorous dames, double crossings, and although it doesn't feature some of the genre's more wince-inducing violence, it does feature its fair share of nastiness. Its infamous yet oddly bloodless slaughterhouse interrogation being a standout scene. But mostly gets by on the strength of its characters and its great script, courtesy of Barry Keefe. A film that takes the unusual angle of having the villain of the piece having to solve the mystery of his current predicaments. Why are his men dropping like flies, and how does the self-proclaimed British crime kingpin juggle the double threats of the mafia and the IRA?
Harold, if that bomb's Irish, it's a different game. Now, those boyos don't know the rules.
Names and addresses are the mix, right?
One of my other favourite elements of The Long Good Friday is seeing London, specifically the Docklands area as it was in the late 70s and early 80s. It's completely unrecognisable from the upmarket, uber-developed state that it's in now. It's a great time capsule, and Harold's grand plans for the area prophetically predict the creation of the modern Canary Wharf. So The Long Good Friday has one of my personal favourite finales in cinema. No spoilers here, but it's a tour de force from Bob Hoskins and is up there with cinema's great sucker punch endings. Now, I do have to mention Keefe's script here because it's an absolute gem. It's packed full of brilliant one-liners, and in fact, Guy Ritchie's entire filmography owes Barry Keefe's screenplay a great debt, as almost Ritchie's entire output has been born from the brilliantly colourful Cockney dialogue that Hoskins chews on throughout The Long Good Friday.
To keep it all incognito, they're going to collect the body in an ice cream van.
There's a lot of dignity in that, isn't there? Going out like a raspberry ripple.
And they're going to store the body in the freezer down the abattoir.
And also, I'm not sure how much I gush over musical scores in many of my videos, but I absolutely cannot talk about this film without mentioning the music by Francis Monkman. All synths and strings and a late 70s disco vibe that runs through it. And that sounds like it shouldn't work, but for me it fits right in with that late 70s, early 80s garishness that the film has. So watching this back, I kind of realised that we miss films like The Long Good Friday, these British crime flicks that had a great run through the 60s up to this in 1980. I can't think of anything else since. There was Mona Lisa in 86, which was Hoskins again, but that had more of a romance element from what I can remember. I know in the late 90s, Guy Ritchie's Lock, Stock and Two Smoking Barrels combined, you know, the popular lad culture at the time with Ritchie's love of films like The Long Good Friday, which kick-started a mini British crime renaissance. But nothing in the same vein as Bob Hoskins and director John Mackenzie's finest achievement. Go check it out.
What I'm looking for is someone who can contribute to what England has given to the world. Culture, sophistication, genius. A little bit more than an hot dog. Know what I mean?